What's being discussed right now can completely reshape the Western Conference playoff picture. I'm talking about conversations that are happening behind closed doors. Conversations that involve a player most people aren't even thinking about. Conversations that could give the Lakers the exact piece they've been missing all season long. And I'm going to tell you everything I know, but you need to stick with me until the end, because this story has layers that go way deeper than you might imagine. Welcome to Lakers News Fan Report, where you get the freshest updates, the most reliable rumors, and the sharpest analysis of our Los Angeles Lakers. If you're serious about following this team, if you want to know what's really happening before everyone else catches on, you're in the right place. Go ahead and subscribe right now, because what's coming in the next few weeks is going to be absolutely wild, and you don't want to miss a single moment of it. Let me start by asking you something. When you think about what this Lakers team needs to become a legitimate championship contender, what comes to mind? More shooting? Better perimeter defense? Another playmaker? Depth? All those things matter, absolutely. But what if I told you there's one specific player out there who could address multiple needs simultaneously? Who's young enough to grow with this team, but ready enough to contribute immediately? Who's available, but flying completely under the radar, because everyone's focused on the usual suspects? That player exists, and the path to bringing him to Los Angeles might be clearer than anyone. Realize, right now, as we speak, there's a franchise up in Northern California that's having some serious internal discussion. The Golden State Warriors. Now, I know what you're thinking. The Warriors? They just won a championship a couple years ago. They've got Steph Curry playing at an MVP level. They've got championship DNA. Why would they be having difficult conversations? Well, here's the reality of the NBA. Success isn't permanent. Windows close faster than you think. And right now, the Warriors are sitting at a record that's just barely above 500. They're not terrible, but they're not dominant either. They're somewhere in that dangerous middle ground where you're good enough to make the playoffs, but probably not good enough to win it all. And when you've got a legend like Steph Curry who's not getting any younger, being stuck in the middle is the worst place you can be. The Warriors have some decisions to make. And those decisions revolve around their young talent. Specifically, they need to figure out what to do with Jonathan Kuminga. Remember that name, because it's going to be crucial to everything I'm about to explain. Kuminga is 23 years old, 6'7", explosive athleticism, drafted 7th overall just a few years ago. He was supposed to be the future of the Warriors franchise, the guy who would bridge the gap between the Curry dynasty and whatever comes next. But things haven't quite worked out the way they planned. Development hasn't been linear. Playing time has been inconsistent. The fit hasn't been perfect. And now, with the trade deadline approaching on February 5th, league insiders are starting to whisper that Kuminga might be available now. Before you dismiss this as just another rumor, let me give you some context about where this information is coming from. There are expectations growing in various corners of the league, among executives who've been doing this for decades, among scouts who watch every game, among people who understand how these situations typically unfold. They're looking at Golden State's situation, and they're seeing a team that might need to make a tough choice. Do they keep developing Kuminga and hope he eventually becomes what they thought he'd be? Or do they trade him now while he still has significant value and try to get pieces that can help them maximize what's left of Curry's prime? Here's where it gets really interesting for us as Lakers fans. A veteran executive, someone who's been around this league long enough to know value when they see it, recently described Kuminga's contract as one of the best trade chips in the entire NBA. Think about that for a second. One of the best trade chips in the league. He's on a 2-year deal worth $46.8 million with a team option for that second year. That's incredibly team-friendly money for a player with his physical tools and upside. That's the kind of contract that makes trades work, because it gives the acquiring team flexibility and control. That's the kind of contract that allows a team like the Lakers to make a move without completely destroying their salary cap structure. But here's the twist, and this is where the opportunity really emerges. Not everyone around the league agrees on Kuminga's value. There are scouts. There are front office people who are skeptical. One Eastern Conference scout recently questioned who would actually take him and whether the Warriors could get the kind of return they're hoping for. Another scout suggested that Kuminga is basically who he is at this point. That despite being young, the growth trajectory hasn't been what people hoped. He's currently dealing with knee soreness that's kept him out of games, and when he has played this season, the performance has been up and down. Some nights he looks like a future star. Other nights he disappears. He's been trying to fit in the Golden State system, but according to scouts, he keeps falling back into old habits. Now, you might be wondering why I'm excited about a player that scouts are questioning. Great question. Here's why. When there's disagreement about a player's value in the market, that creates opportunity for smart teams. When half the league thinks a guy is a project and the other half sees untapped potential, that's when you can make a deal that looks brilliant 2 years down the road. The Lakers are in a unique position to take advantage of this exact situation. They have veteran leadership that can help develop young talent. They have a system that's becoming more defined and effective. They have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, two guys who can mentor a young player and accelerate his development in ways that most franchises simply can't offer. Let me paint a picture for you of what Kuminga could become in a Lakers uniform, because this is where my excitement really kicks in. First and foremost, this guy's an elite athlete. I'm talking about legitimate explosiveness. He's fast in transition. He's a powerful finisher at the rim. He's got the kind of vertical pop that makes highlight reels. Now imagine him in a Lakers jersey, running the floor with LeBron James. Imagine those fast break opportunities. Imagine LeBron grabbing a rebound, pushing the pace, and having Kuminga sprinting down the wing, ready to catch a lob or finish through contact. That's the kind of dynamic, exciting basketball that gets fans on their feet. That's the kind of play that demoralizes opponents and energizes your entire team. Defensively, and this is crucial, Kuminga has all the tools to be elite. At 6'7" with good length and exceptional athleticism, he can guard multiple positions. He can switch onto guards. He can handle forwards. He's got the lateral quickness to stay in front of perimeter players and the strength to hold his ground against bigger opponents. In today's NBA, where versatility is everything, where playoff series are won by teams that can switch everything and not give up mismatches, having another switchable wing defender will be enormous for the Lakers. They've been solid defensively this year, but adding Kuminga will give them the kind of defensive lineup that could legitimately shut down elite offenses in a playoff series. The offensive potential is what really intrigues me, though. Kuminga hasn't fully developed his offensive game yet, and that's actually part of why this opportunity exists. But the foundation is there. He can attack closeouts. He can finish in traffic. He's been working on his three-point shot, and while it's not consistent yet, the mechanics look decent, and there's reason to believe he can develop into a respectable shooter. Playing alongside LeBron and AD will give him so many clean looks, so many opportunities to score without having to create everything himself. He wouldn't need to be the primary option. He could just play his game, use his athleticism, make the simple play, and let his natural talent take over. And here's the part that really matters for the long-term future of this franchise. Kuminga is only 23 years old. He fits both timelines perfectly. He can help the Lakers win right now while LeBron is still playing at an elite level and AD is in his prime. But he's also young enough that when LeBron eventually retires, when this current era comes to an end, Kuminga would just be entering his prime years. He could be the cornerstone piece that carries his franchise into the next era. That's incredibly valuable. That's the kind of acquisition that extends your championship window and sets you up for sustained success. You're not just making a win-now move. You're also investing in the future. Now let's talk about the business side of this equation, because there are some fascinating developments happening in the Lakers front office that make me think they're positioned to be aggressive at the deadline. The team is under new ownership now, with Mark Walter taking over from the Buss family, and Walter is bringing a completely different approach to running this organization. He's bringing in elite executive talent from his other sports properties. Farhan Zaidi and Andrew Friedman, both incredibly successful baseball executives with the Dodgers, are now serving as advisors with the Lakers through TWG Sports, the entity Walter created to oversee all his sports holdings. Zaidi has been functioning as Walter's representative during this ownership transition, and Friedman has been consulting directly with Rob Pelinka. Think about what that means. These are guys who built championship organizations. These are guys who know how to identify market inefficiency, how to find value where others don't see it, how to make calculated risks that pay off big. The Dodgers haven't been shy about making bold moves, about spending money, about being aggressive when opportunities arise. And now that same mentality, that same strategic approach is being applied to the Lakers. That tells me this front office isn't going to be passive at the deadline. They're going to be looking for ways to improve this team, and they're going to have the analytical firepower and strategic vision to identify the right opportunities. So here's what I think is happening behind the scenes. I think the Lakers have identified Kuminga as a target. I think they've been monitoring his situation in Golden State closely, watching how things have developed, waiting for the right moment to engage in serious discussion. I think they've been evaluating their own roster, figuring out what combination of players and draft assets they'd be willing to part with to make a deal happen. And I think they're preparing to make a move that could define not just this season, but the next several years of Lakers basketball. What would a realistic trade package look like? That's obviously the big question. The Warriors aren't going to just give Kuminga away. They're going to want real value in return. They're going to want players who can help them compete now, while Curry is still elite. They're going to want guys who fit their system, who can shoot, who can move the ball, who understand their pace and space style of play. The Lakers would likely have to include some rotation players, probably a couple of, and almost certainly some draft compensation. But here's my take on it. If you can acquire a 23-year-old with Kuminga's physical tools, his defensive potential, and his upside, you do it. You don't overthink it. You don't get cute. You make the deal and you figure out the rest later. Think about what a closing lineup could look like with Kuminga in purple and gold. LeBron at the point, running the offense and orchestrating everything. AD at the 5, protecting the rim and dominating in the paint. Kuminga on the wing, using his athleticism to cut, to defend, to make plays in transition. And then you surround those three with shooters who can space the floor and knock down open shots. That's a lineup with incredible size, length, versatility, and talent. That's a lineup that can match up with anyone in the league. That's a lineup that could legitimately compete for a champion. The financial side of this works beautifully too. Kuminga's contract is incredibly manageable. It's not going to create long-term salary cap problems. It gives the Lakers flexibility to continue building and making moves. And with that team option for the second year, the Lakers would have control over his future. If he develops the way we hope, you pick up that option, and you've got a star on a below-market contract. If things don't work out, you let him walk and you maintain your flexibility. It's a low-risk, high-reward proposition. Now I want to be completely transparent with you about the challenges here. Trades are complicated. There are a lot of factors at play. Golden State might decide they're not ready to give up on Kuminga yet, that they want to give him more time to develop within their system. Other teams might get involved in the bidding and drive up the price beyond what the Lakers are willing to pay. The Lakers themselves might decide that the asking price is too steep, that they're better off keeping their current rotation intact and looking for smaller upgrades around the margins. All of those scenarios are possible. But the fact that this opportunity exists, the fact that Kuminga might be available, and the Lakers have the assets to make a competitive offer, that's exciting. That's the kind of situation you want your team to be in. I also want to address the concerns some people will inevitably have. Yes, Kuminga has been inconsistent. Yes, he hasn't fully lived up to his draft position. Yes, there are questions about his basketball IQ and his decision-making. All of that is fair. But you know what? That's exactly why the Lakers might be able to get him without completely gutting their roster. That's why this could be a buy low opportunity on a player who still has legitimate star potential. The Lakers have something that most teams don't have. Everything is in place for something special to happen this season. And if they can add a young, athletic, high-ceiling player like Jonathan Kuminga to this mix, if they can pull off a deal that addresses immediate needs while also investing in the future, this team could be absolutely dangerous come playoff time. So stay locked in with me. Keep engaging with this content. Drop your comments. Share your thoughts. Let's ride this season together as Lakers Nation. I'll see you in the next one. Let's go get banner 18.